Hey there, this is Nathan at Polysource Industries. Today we will be going over the Graco Fusion AP full build. If you missed part one, the teardown, then check that out. It will be in our description. This is a build for somebody that has no idea what's going on with this gun, start to finish. If you're still at this stage and you don't know where to go, you need help, maybe check back on our first video. It will be in the description and you can see how to tear apart the gun. We will also be having cleaning videos for your side seal housings, check valve assemblies, everything like that on how to do that so that you're not damaging any of your nice expensive parts and costing yourself more money, okay? So getting started, we have our handle here. It's nice and clean. First off, we have our air piston. So this is going to sit inside here. One thing to note, once you have your O-rings on, and make sure you grease every O-ring before you put it on with a white lithium grease. This is aftermarket. You can also get the Graco lithium grease from Polysource Industries. That's for the Fusion AP. Make sure you give it everything a nice grease before you're putting in the O-rings. Too much grease in this air piston is a bad thing. The gun will seize up. You end up having buildup of grease. Less is more on this gun. It's not a big fan of too much. With the AP3, the P2, they do like a bit more grease. So just keep that in mind, okay? So we get this guy all greased up. Stick this back in here. Make sure that this is clocked right. And just push that in, okay? So on the first video we went through this guy, how to tear it apart, and I did kind of touch base on putting it all back together. There is the O-ring here. Make sure you grease that guy up before you stick that on. And this one just screws in the back here. Hand tight's nice. Don't break out the channel locks and over crank it because you don't want to strip anything in here, right? Next we're going to go with our spooling rod. This is a little bit dry, so I am going to put a little bit more grease. Little trick with the grease is you just put your hand here, give it a little push, and you get some grease out, okay? Some grease on that guy. And you want to make sure that these air holes are pointing up and down so you have no inhibited flow, okay? You take your pick, just give it a little push forward. Spring in the back, make sure it sits inside that little groove in the spooling rod, okay? And now your air fitting just screws in. Like I mentioned in part one, this guy you want to tighten some channel locks or something, a little bit more than hand tight, just so it's not coming out hitting you in the face, okay? Next is our muffler. Okay, this guy goes in the small hole here. No need to put any Loctite or Teflon tape on that, okay, because that is just an exhaust port with a hole. That one, tighten up there. Now this plug goes in the big hole here. If you're ever having issues with you know, cross threading, anything like that, and not going in, make sure it's clean. The trick for national pipe thread stuff is if you actually turn it, you know, counterclockwise and you hear a click, that's when the threads are now in line, and then you start turning clockwise, okay? That's how you don't cross thread every single time. So next is our chamber. Like we said before, the notch goes to the left when you're looking at the gun, or numbers up. This guy goes in here. Make sure it's up and down like that. Now we can take our fluid housing, stick this one on here, okay? Now I find it easier to do it upside down like this. This thing's a little tricky sometimes when you're starting out. You kind of have to pull this piece out while pushing the lock nut in and turning, okay? And once you feel it start to go, just turn your gun sideways, Make sure that's all even so that you don't have anything cross-threading. Last thing you want to do is damage any of the threads on your gun. That starts costing money that you don't want to spend, okay? Check valves are next. Make sure your A is going in your A, your B is going in your B, A side, okay? This guy goes in here. What I should mention first though is there is this little, factory connection of the screen. If your screen is going to fail because your fluid's coming from here to the inside and through, if that does fail and pops open, you want that facing away from the hole. So any chunkies inside there aren't going into your side seals, okay? So like I said, A side in the A, that little factory piece facing to the back of the gun, and just a little push in, okay? B side, no writing on the B, okay? It's a fun thing with Graco. And that guy goes in there. Side seals, side seal housing. You want to make sure there's no burrs here and no scores, okay? Just give it a little wipe, make sure it's kind of a mirror finish. A little bit of grease on it. Okay, sides here. And this is obviously the B because there's no A on it, right? So no A, that's the B. That guy just goes in like that. And this one has the A, so that's the A. We're gonna put a little bit of grease on there. A side, okay? This guy just slides in nice like that. And just give it a little pinch. So your side seals, you can see touch the chamber. If they're sticking back, maybe you forgot to put in the spring inside the side seal housing, or there's an issue, make sure they are contacting it. Otherwise, they aren't doing their name and sealing, okay? So make sure that guy's in. Take your front air cap, screw this guy on, okay? Have our O-ring here that we need to make sure we have. So we have proper seal, and we have an O-ring here that ends up sealing with the tip. If you have too much airflow coming out the sides of the tip, this is the O-ring that causes the issues. So we have one O-ring on the side of the check valve here, and one that connects to your coupling block right there. We have one O-ring on the side of the side seal here that ends up sitting inside this groove, so you got to make sure that is fully clean inside the side seal housing, and we have two side seal O-rings right there. Alright, so the front air cap goes on here. Okay, and there's this Teflon O-ring in here. We talked about how to check if that's good in the first video, so if you need that, just reference back to that video. Okay, now so we can take our grease nipple. We talked about how to test that in the first video. I'm not going to go over it now. And just start that, screwing in your fingers, and then 5/16 nut driver. Okay. And then your cap. You don't need the cap, just it does save the life of your grease nipple, okay? If you ever buy a used gun, chances are it's not coming with this cap. If you do need a cap, let us know here at Polysource and we will order you one and send it out. There's an O-ring here on your clean off air valve. That guy goes into the right hand holder. And now your air tip. Should mention there are different types of air tips for your different types of chambers. You have a flat, a round, and a wide, and you need to make sure you have the right tip, right chamber. We're just using the round pattern one here for foam, so if it looks a little bit different, that's okay. They kind of all do the different jobs for what industry you are within polyurethane. That's it. That's the Fusion AP by Graco build. It's a good gun to have, good gun to use. There are different guns, but personally, I like this guy the best.
Polysource Industries, your one-stop shop for all things foam and protective coatings.